Welcome to Tech Notice, my friends. I know that this doesn't come to you as a surprise that Sony has recently released the Sony A7s III camera. Depends when you're watching this video, it might be months away or whatever. But when I saw this release, I saw that the MSRP for this camera is £3,800 in the UK or $3,500 in the US. And I know what you're thinking, and I was thinking the same thing. That is expensive. Feels like expensive for, you know, indie shooters, wedding filmmakers, or just content creators like you and me. But then I realized that this is actually very, very cheap. And in this video, I'm hoping to kind of share my thoughts why there is nothing like this in the camera market, what Sony has released, and why this camera is extremely cheap. So if you want, feel free to minimize the screen right now or do something else, because this is not going to be a video that you're going to want to watch, but more like to listen and kind of just think, let's take this as a video podcast, if you say. So I'm just going to share my mind about this camera and just some thoughts that I haven't seen anyone else kind of say on the internet. And by the way, I'd love to know from you if you're thinking similar thoughts, or if you knew this already, or if you have anything you'd like to add, or whatever you think about this camera. I'd like to know from you as well in the comment section below. So hopefully after the video, I'm going to meet you down there. So let's talk about Sony A7s III then. So first of all, let me get this out of the way, that I understand that there's no such thing as a perfect camera, because what you do and how your workflow is, you know, it's all different. So let's get that cliche out of the way. We know there's no such thing as a perfect camera, but in my case, this seems to be the perfect camera. And I think a lot of people share the same case as I have, that this could be the perfect camera for them. So basically what I would use this camera for is, you know, YouTube videos, content creation, maybe a little bit of vlogging, not so much, but it's perfect for that as well. Wedding filmmaking, client work that I might come across, or things like that. Obviously less now in the corona, more like YouTube. So YouTube is the main thing that this camera will be used for in my case. And here is the spec combo that makes the golden kind of camera line, or why this camera is so impressive and so unique. So here's the thing, you can't find a camera for that price that has full frame, 4K, up to 120 frames per second, 10-bit 422 internal recording, okay? No recording limits, no overheating at all, as much as we can see online. Some people have, but most people have no overheating issues. And top of the class autofocus system, okay? If not the best, you know, at least right up there with Canon or whatever else you can get. It's right up there with the best autofocusing system. A lot of people have said on the internet that it's the best, you know, that they've tried. I'm a small YouTuber, so, you know, obviously, you know, I don't get the cameras sent in, so I have to look what other people are doing and then kind of share my mind on them, not actually experience. Hopefully one day that will change. So if you're watching this, subscribe, and we'll make this you know, happen in the future. And like all the other specs around it are just like icings on the cake, but this is like the main combo. Okay, let's add the 16-bit external raw output from the HDMI, which is absolutely bonkers. I'll have to make another video about that, how ridiculous that is. 16-bit raw, it's ridiculous, okay? So that's like a bonus, plus all the rest of the things are a bonus. But the main combo then is full frame, 4K, 120 frames per second, autofocus system, 10-bit internally, and no recording limits and no overheating, okay? So this is the golden spec combination. Now, let's have a look at some of the other manufacturers in the market, and then very quickly we're gonna see how there is nothing even close to that in the market, and I can't believe that no one else has thought of that, and Sony perfectly slotted their camera in the gap where there's nothing like that in the market. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the competitors that, you know, create cameras or produce cameras. Nikon, for example. So in the Nikon line, Nikon is mostly for photography, But in the recent years, with the mirrorless that they've released, they've also added video specs, and the Z6 is probably the closest that can compete with Sony A7s III. Now, I understand that the Z6 camera is much cheaper camera than Sony A7s III, but spec-wise and what the video provides is probably the closest in the Nikon line. What we don't have with the Z6 is the 10-bit internal recording, and there is a recording limit of 13 minutes on the Nikon, as well as the autofocusing system is quite alright, even though it is a face detection autofocus system. I don't know if we can compare it to Canon and Sony, but let's say even with that out of the way, we still have recording limits, no 10-bit internally, no slow motion either. Okay, so Nikon is out of the way. I can't use this Nikon camera because most of the time I'm shooting like this, and obviously the video just records maybe like 30, 40, sometimes 50 minutes when we're doing PC builds over there. It just records like an hour or an hour and a half, literally straight. So to be running with like different files and starting again, it's a massive pain in the backside. So I don't do that, and that's why that Nikon camera wouldn't be best for me. Obviously, you know, from my case, let me know your case and what you're thinking in the comment section below. Let's look at Fuji cameras now. So Fuji is another very good camera company that produces absolutely amazing photo cameras and amazing lenses and amazing color science, amazing things like that. But the thing is, Fuji doesn't produce full frame cameras. Okay, you can get some awesome 10-bit, 4K, even 60 frames per second cameras that Fuji has, but they have either recording limits or there is no full frame. So we're gonna have to roll that out of the way as well, because the specs, there is nothing like that in the Fuji line, mostly because they're not full frame. And then we have Blackmagic, and Blackmagic has some absolutely killer cameras. You know, the pocket cinema cameras, 6K and 4K. For what price you pay for them, absolutely amazing. I'm very tempted to have one myself and would like to try one myself. We'll see. But then one of the biggest things for that is that when you're doing videos like this and you're relying on autofocus, yeah, I know this autofocus might not be the best over here, but still, as you can see, the autofocus needs to keep up with, you know, this A-roll over here when we're shooting videos like this. So I couldn't do that with Blackmagic because I'd have to stay still and they're not move out of the frame or move front and back because, you know, my focus point has been set there because there's no autofocus system. So because Blackmagic doesn't have full frame and autofocus system, we're going to roll that out of the way as well. Even though they have 12-bit and B-roll, which are very good, but because of the full frame and autofocus system, which is the main thing, we have to roll it out of the equation. And finally now we have Canon, probably Sony's main competitor and still the biggest fish in the market actually. Canon still is the biggest in the world, selling the most cameras regardless of what Sony is doing. So Canon released the R6 and R5 recently, and a lot of people, you know, it's amazing cameras. They're absolutely awesome cameras, but even these cameras can't compete with these specs. I know they do 8K and Sony's 4K looks very moderate or modest compared to 8K, but let's have a look at a little bit in the specs. So we all know that R5 and R6, the overheating issue, which is a very hot topic on the internet at the moment. Because of that, I can't use the camera because I'm doing these long-term videos over here. I need the A-roll to just roll through, and the camera is just unusable for me. I know it's a full frame and 4K, we get 10-bit and very good autofocus system, but the main thing is the reliability of overheating and long-term recording limits. Even Canon has recording limits, so that will be not very good for me, where Sony just flies through in that area. On the internet recent days, we've seen that the R5 and R6 overheating issue might be a little bit of a scam, or a little bit of, you know, Canon's usual, we've crippled our cameras. I don't know, looks like it because you can easily kind of bypass that and record longer than what they actually said. So I'm not sure what's going on over there, but as you can see, because of the overheating issues and recording limits, we still don't have the 4K, 10-bit internally, no recording limits, and no overheating, that type of camera. And this is where, you know, Sony comes in perfectly. So these are basically in the mirrorless cameras markets. Okay, so now let's look at some of the cameras that are just generally that could match that spec combo. Okay, where do we have these cameras or cinema cameras that could match the awesome autofocus system, full frame, no recording limits? Okay, just these three things. Let's have a look. So, you know, Fuji and Canon, they don't do these, so we're gonna roll them out. So we have only Canon and Sony itself. Even on Canon's like cinema line, we're gonna have to roll past C100, C200, C300. All of them are Super 35 sensors cameras. Okay, there's a delivery downstairs. Wait a second. Okay, I'm back now. Now I got the delivery. So until we reach the C500, and that is Mark II, I think, that has the full frame camera and can do not 4K, but even 5.9K RAW and things like that, much more. But the full frame, no recording limits, awesome autofocus system arrives at C500, okay, which is around £15,000 or even more just for the body, which is very, very expensive. About what, 4 times more expensive camera than Sony A7s III. And I know that not everyone needs full frame, and you can, you know, make do with C200 and 300. They're much cheaper cameras, but still more expensive than say A7s III cameras. Let's just say that if you want the full frame, you can see that it's very, very specific place where Sony slotted their camera, and as you can see, there is nothing like that in the market, in that marketplace. Even if Sony doubled the price, there is nothing that Canon can offer a full frame 10-bit and, you know, 16-bit externally. That is pretty insane specs, okay? And if you look at even Sony's own line of cameras, the Sony FX9, which is a full frame camera. So that's the first camera that is closest to, you know, full frame, at least 4K camera, you know, recording, 10-bit internally or externally, whatever. And also autofocus system, we arrive at FX9, which is another, what, 11,000 plus camera. So as you can see, the Sony A7s III slots into some kind of like a spot where no one's been ever before, or there's not a lot of cameras before, that you can have a small mirrorless camera that does 10-bit, right, internally, full frame, awesome autofocus system, and no overheating issues. Now that is absolutely fantastic. And this is why I have actually pre-ordered the camera, to spoil the, you know, fans, if you're here, want to know what's going to happen in the channel. I do have pre-ordered the camera because it is just so awesome spec in terms of exactly what I need over here, and what an upgrade to this A6500 that I'm shooting at the moment. You know, to go to 10-bit, much better autofocus system, massively going to improve the image quality on these videos. I think I just have to underline the autofocus system as well, because the autofocus system is something that like I could not live without. Okay, I could shoot B-roll without autofocus system, but like videos like this, I want to be free and move around the frame and kind of know that the autofocus, you know, tracks me and is keeping up with me, and that's why I think it's important to have that. Also, because I'm in a quite small space, the full frame sensor readout, you know, making me able to get a wider field of view is very, very important to me, because I don't, you know, I can touch the ceilings over here, so I want to have the camera as close to me as possible, you know, to kind of make it feel that, you know, we're just here talking, not too far away, but get that large field of view. So that's why full frame is very important to me as well, to get a lot of depth of field, even though, you know, things are very close to me in the background, but still get a bit of blur in the back over there. That's why the full frame is also important to me. So I've rambled on quite a lot now, and hopefully like I've got my thoughts out of my mind. I'd like to know now your thoughts. What are you thinking? Did you know that this was happening? Did you know, did you realize that this was where Sony was slotting the camera? Did you realize this was what was happening? Anyway, I would love to know from you in the comment section below. So let's start a conversation down there. Thanks very much, guys, for watching or listening, really, because there was nothing much to see here. And we'll see you next time. Subscribe if you haven't already. Like that video if you found it helpful, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye-bye.